Chapter 10, Listing Agreements. In this chapter, we're going to describe different types of listing agreements, identify information necessary for disclosure, and how to properly price a property. Um, what are listings? Well, a listing is when a property owner hires a real estate brokerage to market their property to find them a ready, willing, able buyer or renter. In real estate, there's an important saying, I know because I say it. I made this up here. If you don't list, you won't last. Generally speaking, I mean, I guess you could, but you're going to be busting your butt all the time. So my suggestions are agents should spend about 70% of their time trying to get listings. And don't forget to also reinvest money back into your business. Don't go just all spending all that commission in one place now, because you're going to need to pay the tax man at the end of the year. And why not try to pay them less by keeping track of your expenses? And you can use some more money in your expenses to get even more business so that you could make more money by reinvesting in your business, thus lowering the taxable liability that you have. So if you're only working as a buyers or renters and actively showing properties to them, you won't get paid. If you're a listing agent who is hired by a property owner to market their property for sale or lease, even if you stay home sick one day or you go on vacation, other agents will be showing your listings and can submit offers on them, and then you can still get paid from the listing side of the transaction. And remember, because there's two sides of a transaction, and that commission gets split or could get split if it's paid by the seller. Otherwise, each side will be responsible for paying their own now. This also gives the possibility for the listing agent to make more money if they also find the buyer for the property. They get the commission from both sides of the transaction, the full commission, the seller side and the buyer side. Double the money, one transaction. Not a bad deal, huh? So yeah, let me put a little title here. Okay, yeah, I titled this "Working More with Owners to Concentrate on Getting Listings." That's probably a little bit longer of a title, but more appropriate for this situation here. Because if you're only working with buyers or renters, you always got to run around with your like a chicken with a head cut off, you know? If you're not actively showing them properties, you know, to put contracts and offers together, you're not going to get paid. However, if you got a listing, if you're a listing agent, um, what do buyers look for? Properties. They don't look for agents, they look for properties. And they'll be calling you because you're an agent who has a listed property. So you don't have to chase after people as much if you're a listing agent. The buyers will come to you. And you got that opportunity of working with both the seller and the buyers in transactions. That's my that's my point of it all here. So, as a listing agent, to list, sell, or rent another person's real estate. and be their exclusive agent. Let's say exclusively. Exclusively. So, New Jersey statute of frauds. We've seen this term before. We know that it usually requires something to be in writing. So, New Jersey statute of frauds stipulates that to be entitled to a commission on a real estate transaction, a listing broker must have some sort of written authorization to act on their behalf as their broker. We can't market an owner's property without their permission. We need an authorization in writing is required to charge or earn a commission. Some listing agreements no longer include commission information, others do. These would be combination listing and brokerage service agreement. Listing agreements must be supplied to owners in writing within 5 days if we take a verbal listing, which I don't suggest that you do. And if it is not advised to take verbal listings, the owner can always change their mind. And then if you put that listing already in the MLS, well, you may get in trouble with the MLS because you're supposed to supply to them the listing paperwork at the time you get the listings within 24 hours there, right? You got to put it, or 48 hours, you got to put it in the MLS. So let's highlight. Let me know when you got the highlights.
Got it.
Got it.
So listing agreements, brokerage service agreements, they must state the following to be valid. Although listing agreements don't include commission, some listing agreements don't include them, the commission or anything about commissions anymore on them. Some of them, because some MLSs are a little more cowardice than others about as a result of those NAR lawsuits. So the brokerage service agreements must state the following to be valid. Listing agreements no longer, in many cases, talk about commissions after the NAR lawsuit settlement, while some still do, like the Garden State MLS. Their listing agreement is combined with the brokerage service agreement, which states that the commission states the commissions and the splits. As required under the new law, changes as a result of the lawsuit. The rate and exact amount of commission to be earned by the broker. In New Jersey, brokerage service agreements cannot have the commission pre-typed in. The commission must be written in and must only be expressed as a percentage or a dollar amount. No prescribed fee schedules are allowed. An example is where they do this on a listing agreement. They write 6%, 7%, 8%, 9%, 10%, pick one. That's not negotiable. A blank line would have been negotiable. You must specify a definite termination date in the agreement as well for any listing agreement to be valid. So there's three typical kinds of listings. We have open listings, and then those that begin with the word exclusive. The ones that begin with the word exclusive, what does exclusive mean? It means the owner exclusively hired one agency to market their property to find them a ready, willing, able buyer or renter. So an open listing, the owner did not commit to any single agency. They basically go to one real estate agent and they say, hey, you find me a buyer, pay you a commission. Oh, and if you use your resources, market my property, you find a buyer, pay you a commission. Oh, and you over there, if you find me a buyer using your resources and marketing, and if you find a buyer, I'll pay you a commission. So they go to as many agents as they want, all acting as their agents, and then they want them to use all their resources, but they're not committing to only one agent. They're basically just saying whoever brings the buyer, I'll pay a commission to. Nah, I'm not working with you. Exclusive agency listings and exclusive right to sell listings begin with the word exclusive. So the owner hires only one agency to exclusively represent them to market their property. Not ready, willing, and able buyer. Excuse me. Now, I put a little smiley face next to exclusive right to sell listing because those are the ones that you want to get. And I will show you why momentarily. So you may
Can I
want to.
ask a question here?
No, you can never ask questions in this class. Of course you
I
can.
this is what I want. I always wonder because where I live, they give out like, a weekly paper where all the agency, the big agencies around the area, put their ads in, their marketing, for the homes that they have up for sale. So a lot of them are not the listing agent necessarily. There's just homes in the area that are up for sale and they advertise them, correct?
Not if it's an exclusive listing.
Not if it's an exclusive listing. But then I always wonder why aren't all the same homes, let's say, listed or, under multiple sellers? They never duplicate them and they're all different agencies. So do people know what's going on over there?
It should be, the owner should be listing with only one agency, but hey, they're free to do anything they want. Some of them go to 10 different agents. Look, I had one person ever call me and ask me outright about open listings. I guess they heard about stuff and they did research online, so they're calling up agencies and they're like, "Yeah, do you take open listings?" This lady called me up one time. It was kind of late. I was the only one left in the office. I was filling out listing paperwork, ironically, for a listing that I was doing. And so I was filling out all this paperwork, and I was getting ready to, put it in the MLS. And the I get this call, so I'm still concentrating on my paperwork, and I said, you know, um, did the greeting and all, and then she's like, "Yeah, do you guys accept?" She didn't get further than saying, "Oh," and I said, "No." Like, I thought it was funny afterwards. I kind of was laughing to myself because I just realized what happened. My mind was so deep in the paperwork and the listings, and I was talking to this lady at the same time. My mind was working on overdrive, and she didn't even get halfway through the word, and I knew what she was going to say. And I said, no. Yeah. So I kind of chuckled because afterwards, because I was like, holy crap, she didn't even finish her word. And I already knew what she was going to say. And I said, no. And then she was like, she hung up. Oh, wasn't a client anyway. So I was like, oh, there you go. Save my time. So she's basically calling around different agents to see if we take open listings to spend your money, your time, your effort, your resources to work for her on her behalf to try to market her property and find her a buyer. Yet she wasn't willing to do that same commitment to you. But no, why would I? So no, I don't take open listings. I don't bother with that. I don't waste my time.
You're
Plus,
not
it's
advertising a listing that's not
no,
exclusively yours.
no.
What about at the beginning?
How you mean?
let's say you're starting out, how you getting your list, how you getting your name out there. So you'll just, advertise
Well,
homes that,
I can still be picky, and I suggest you do too. Don't undercut your own commission rates, what you want to charge, value the services that you provide. Familiarize yourself with your services that you or your agency provide. Where are you going to be? If you got a listing, where are you going to market it? Do all this research together, put together listing presentations, but be ready to answer people's questions and how to overcome objections. This is the type of training that you need to get from your brokers once you get your real estate license in the office.
But I am seeing here when we have open listing, maybe he or she will not gonna pay commission to any listing agency, because the word is saying if the seller personally sell the property without the aid of any of the broker, he or she is not obliged to pay the commission to anyone. So open listing, maybe the 90% time no one is getting any commissions.
If you bring the buyer, they do. They should. But you got
You
to
bring, you bring the buyer, but their mindset is for open. They will not accept that offer, and they will going to find that buyer themselves.
Maybe. I don't know. That person's not looking to commit to me in any way, shape, or form. I'm not even going to lift a pencil to write down their name.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just me. Somebody who's desperate for business, they may be willing to suck up to anybody and do anything.
Yep.
Thank you. I could spend my time in more valuable ways, like watching Netflix or something. Going out for a ride on my motorcycle. I think my time is better spent doing those things. Exclusive agency listings, I really don't even care much for those. I like exclusive right to sell listings, and quite frankly, those are the only ones I take. Because even with exclusive agency listings, let's get through them and then we'll get into this conversation. All right, so what's an open listing? Let's do the highlights here of what an open listing is. The seller agrees to pay a broker commission only if the broker procures a buyer for the property. A seller can enter into an open listing with any number of brokers, all of them acting as their agents. And if you're acting as someone's agent, what does that mean? It means you owe them fiduciary duties. Their interests first above everybody's, right? So I'm going to put this person's interest above everybody's, and they're not even willing to commit to me. F you, buddy. That's my attitude anyway. You guys can take it a different way. You guys could do your own business practices however you like. That's just how I do it, No, thank you. Not for me.
But didn't we discuss this sort of already? Like about someone signing, I forgot what it was called, like exclusive broker listing, right?
Well, it's like we just mentioned them. We just learned about the word exclusive in these exclusive listings right now. We're just learning this stuff for the first time. Previously, we discussed about, changes in the laws because with listing agreements and such because of the NAR lawsuits that we have to have these brokerage service agreements and listing agreements, in place. But here now we're talking about different types of listing agreements and what obligations that people have and under what circumstances do you get paid.
Yeah, but I thought that you weren't supposed, in the past you mentioned like you don't ask or maybe that was from the buyer's end. You don't ask the buyer to sign like an exclusive, something that you're going to be the only agent, to work for them.
A lot of agents didn't, but I did, and I suggested to all my students that they should as well. So that you don't get into arguments with the buyers. About paying the commission. You're running around showing them properties, and then they put in an offer with their cousin or their friend who's got a real estate license,
So you do recommend that?
Oh, yeah, I do. Recommend it. Always get stuff in writing. Always. Put everything in writing. Always. Keep records of phone call conversations you have. What I do is, like, if I got a listing or something, and I talk to the owner, I've actually got pages stapled to the I got a folder that has all the paperwork that I got for the listing for that owner, and I'll put paperwork on the front of it, if I need more notes, I'll write in the folder. And if I need more notes, I'll staple a piece of paper to it and I'll write on that too. Anybody calls me, or if I got to call them, like if I'm dealing with bank-owned properties, I got to call a bank and just have a conversation with them. I'll ask who I spoke to, what number I called, when I spoke to them, and what was the topic of the conversation, and what was the end game there, the bottom line. I keep records of everything just in case of lawsuits or just in case something happens. And, I found it useful too, because I've had like short sales. I've done a lot of short sales in my time where you're negotiating with lenders. But a lot of times, if there's not communication for a while, we're waiting for a response for the lender. And then, so you don't call them up every day, you wait. So you could do your periodic follow-up every now and then, but generally you got to wait a while to hear back from somebody. So I'll call back up if it's been a while and I haven't heard back from somebody. I'll be like, yeah, following up on this. And then I've had banks say that, well, we closed out that short sale because you didn't provide something you're supposed to, or you never got back to us. And I'll say, oh, hold on a second. Let me look at my records here in my file. Let me pull open my file. Well, nope. As on this date, at this time, I last spoke to this person at your institution that said that this was going to happen and I had to wait for this and nobody ever got back to me. And then this is what I hear on the phone. I hear tapping on the keys of a computer. Tapping on the keys of a computer. Oh, yes, we see that now. Okay, so reactivate that short sale. We'll put it back into motion again. It was pretty much they killed the deal, for them to look into processing it, but my notes, based on my notes, I was able to say, no, I spoke to this person at this time, and that was the last time anybody ever spoke to me. I was waiting to hear back, and nobody ever got back to me. And like they try to put it on you that you didn't do something, but I was able to call it out because I had the notes. Put everything in writing, take good notes. Okay.
Yeah, they have good platforms for like sales and stuff, how to keep track of that. So I guess it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I do it right there, old fashioned way, write it on a piece of paper
Yeah.
there. You can't lose it. You don't got to worry about looking it up. You open up the folder, it's right there. You got a complete history of everything. It's also easier. You don't got to spend any money on expensive software or anything like that, and then trying to find it within the software. Because we do have software for keeping track of the listing inventories and our contacts and stuff, but you now have to open up a subfolder and somewhere else to try to find out last conversations and things like that. And it may not be as easy to navigate as you think, so it may be easier just to open up a folder, have a piece of paper. I always got my notes here. Here's the last note. That's the last call. Boom. It makes I find it easier anyway. And I embrace technology, but I just find that easier, Okay. So the seller is obligated to pay a commission on an open listing only to the broker who successfully produces a ready, willing, and able buyer. If the seller personally sells the property without the aid of any brokers, they're not obligated to pay you any commission. All right, so yeah, they may try to get you to give up who the buyer is or get some information from them, and then they say, oh no, I got them on my own, or I spoke to them first. Oh, that person, oh no, I already spoke to them once before. Oh, I'm not paying you a commission on that. Now you're having arguments with these freaking people. No, thank you. That's drama. Don't want to deal with your crap. So you guys got that highlight. So that's what an open listing is. And open listings are unilateral contracts. What is a unilateral contract or agreement? It's a one-sided agreement or promise where only one party is obligated to do something, and the other party has an option to do something or not to do something. So in an open listing, the agent's obligated to do something. The seller doesn't have to do something, pay you a commission, unless you decide that you're going to do your part.
So, Victor, on the open listing, and the seller given call to 5 agency, all 5 agencies listing onto the MLS?
You don't put open listings in the MLS.
Open listing is not going to the MLS. Okay.
No, because open listings, the owner is not bound to be exclusively working with you. So there's no date on the listings. There's no expiration date.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they're not bound to
got
work
it.
with you. Wait a minute, any listing we put in the MLS, we have to put in a listing date and an expiration date. You don't do that.
Expiration date, yes.
Plus, what are we
Yeah.
gonna do? Have the same property listed in the MLS database 20 times? You know? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
open
Understand.
things, you just try to find a buyer through your own resources and money and maybe clientele. All
Yeah.
right. So the seller's not committing to exclusively work with a single agency, but the agency's bound to represent them and market their property yet. No, thank you. I got written here, there's no need for an expiration date in the listing because they're not dedicating themselves to you. They're not obligating to work exclusively with you. Only the agency that brings the buyers paid the commission, the buyer's side of the commission. See, that's all they're doing is they're just cheaping out. They don't want to pay you the listing side, but they still want you to use your resources to try to find them a buyer. And then they only get to pay half the commission on the buyer side. That's what that's about. So is it really a listing? I don't even know why they call it a listing. All right. Now, anytime we use the word exclusive, so exclusive type listings, exclusive wording in listing. Let's see. The wording. Let's reword this to make it simplistic. I'm gonna start redoing some wording here for you guys to make your notes even easier. So the word exclusive in listings is any listing. The word exclusive in listings means only is hired to represent the owner to market the property for sale or rent as the exclusive representative of the owner. This does not mean other agencies aren't allowed to show it or entitled to a commission if they bring a buyer or renter. If the owner is allowing the listing agency to offer a commission split, only one agency is allowed to market it. So all listings must be entered into the MLS within 48 hours unless the owner directs us not to. And then we must get them to sign the waiver of broker cooperation agreement. So the waiver of broker cooperation agreement is a form the owner signs when they request we do not cooperate by sharing our listings in the MLS with other agencies. This is referred to as a pocket listing or an exclusive broker on the for sale or lease signs to market and show. But using the word exclusive can start to get confusing because the word exclusive on a sign versus the word exclusive in listing agreements can mean two different things. The word exclusive in listing agreements means the owner exclusively hired the brokerage to represent them to market their property to find a ready, willing, and able buyer. However, the word exclusive on a sign, a real estate sign, when you see exclusive broker, that means they're not cooperating with other brokers because they signed a waiver of broker cooperation agreement. Okay, so the agent should never be the one to introduce this form to the owner. We do not place these listings in the MLS because that's how we cooperate with other brokers to share our listing inventory with them. As required by law. Or I should say, I mean, it is required by law, but as required by the administrative code.
And Jalad?
administrative code. That's the real estate commission's rules. As required by, here, I'll do this by 11:5
5.
NJ Administrative Code. Or that's more like the Rex Administrative Code. Okay. Now, as an added bonus of any exclusive listing, since we're marketing the property and buyers are looking for properties, not for agents, we have the opportunity of getting both sides of the transaction and double the pay. We get the commission from both the sides of the deal, working with both the seller and the buyers. So getting the full commission. Of course, we need to get their permission to work as a disclosed dual agent or represent the seller and not the buyer by working with the buyers as a transaction broker while representing the seller as their agent. That's a way that we could do it too. Okay, so using the word exclusive on signs and listings. Yeah. That better describes that updated. I haven't updated that slide in a while. That's actually a more direct and straightforward update or explanation. Okay, so we don't place listings in the MLS when the owner signs a waiver of broker cooperation. Let's see, here's an example where here's another listing agent. Here's the second one that I know of so far where a listing agent signed the waiver of broker cooperation with an owner, but then yet they still put the listing in the MLS. I don't know why they would do that. This guy had to complete 3 hours of CE in the areas of agency, not to be counted towards his CE for the license renewal, and got a $3,500 fine for that. Oh yeah, because the owner told you not to cooperate with other agencies, and yet you did. I don't know why they would have done that. Anyway, exclusive agency type listings. What exactly is an exclusive agency type of listing? Let me grab that title there. In an exclusive agency type listing, only one agency is exclusively hired to market the property for sale or rent, and the seller reserves the right not to pay us a commission if they find their own buyer. This sometimes causes a conflict of interest between the agent and the owner, who may be trying to avoid paying us a commission. Other agencies can still show the property. We cooperate with them as required by law. And the owner pays a commission if the listing agency or the outside agency brings the buyer or renter, but not if the owner does. Because they reserve the right not to pay us a commission. Once again, this can end you in the same situation as the open listings, where they could try to screw you out of your commission because they said they found the buyer. You know, look, I work with buyers all the time, and sometimes they're not sure where they want to look. So I find them a bunch of properties. I send them the address. I say, hey, drive by, see if you like the neighborhood, the way the house looks on the outside, and then I can set up an appointment to show it to you. So, to try to narrow down the listings that we actually go to see. And imagine if this was an exclusive agency listing. The owner's outside cutting the grass or just sitting on their front porch or something, and they see a car stopping in front of the house. They're gonna be, hey, come on, you want to take a look at it? I'll show you the property. And now all of a sudden they're gonna be arguing with you that, hey, they found that buyer because they pulled up in front of their house and saw their sign or these and they were checking it out and they invited them in. So now they're trying to screw us out of our commission. They're like, no, that person pulled up in front of my house and I pulled them into the house and I showed it to them. I'm not paying you a commission on that. And it's like, wait a minute. Now we're in an argument over who introduced that buyer to the house. I guess it's not a big argument if you had an exclusive buyer's agency agreement signed with that buyer. Now you could prove, but either way, it could still be an argument that they still don't want to pay you a commission, and that's
Why would a seller sign this document? What's the goal? Because technically another agent from another, company can come along. They can pick up a buyer off the street. Like, what's the gain for on their end?
On whose end? The seller?
Yeah, the seller's end.
Well, the seller signs the listing agreement with us, but it's an exclusive agency listing where they reserve the right not to pay us a commission. But they're exclusively working with only one agency who's marketing their property for them. So there are benefits to exclusively working with one agency. You don't need to explain what your goals are and how much you want for the property and all that. The property goes actually in the MLS. You can't have listings with multiple agencies in the MLS. I mean, I guess technically you can, but then if the property sells, they would have to pay each person a commission, I guess. But it becomes an argument who brought them the buyer.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's say, because I know like agents do cold calls, right? Do you guys get like a list of all the people that have houses or is like I don't know how that works.
It depends what tools you have available to you, but you could search. You could search the tax records and get this information. Yeah,
Okay.
and get those lists and print them out. You could get it. Yeah, there are some tools. It depends on the tools that you have that can look up and try to locate the phone numbers for the property owners. Sometimes they're listed in tax records, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's outdated, but it's like pulling out a phone book too. You can find out who lives anywhere, and start calling randomly. But remember, when you do that, you really need to check it against the do not call list. So you're going to need a tool and subscribe to the do not call list so that you don't call people who are on the do not call list. Otherwise, if they file complaints, it could end up costing you thousands of dollars. Now, your broker is probably going to tell you, a broker that encourages agents to do cold calling is going to say, don't worry about that, I'll deal with it. No, they won't. If it actually came down to it, you're the one that called, they're going to try to pass that fine on to you, not the other, not the agency taking it.
Because I have received calls like in my job, I have received call like if they're gonna sell like the property, but we're not the owner, we're just leasing in there, so
they don't even got the property information. How do they even get your information? They probably got it off of some list that's obviously not too great because the list doesn't even know that you're not the owner. You're a renter, right? So they're contacting the wrong person altogether. That's why I hate cold calling. Cold calling works maybe in a market that is thriving where property values are doubling or going up $100,000 each year, and then you can subscribe to lists to get the addresses and the phone numbers of people. or check or just check the phone book, and or online directories and get people's information and call. But you really should check it against the do not call list as the law requires. Me, I like the soft approach. I like sending out postcards to people. If they want to contact me, if they're interested in selling, they'll reach out to me. I'm not trying to call up everybody and convince them that they need to sell their home. I always hated cold calling. I think it's the most annoying thing in the world when people call me at random. You hear my phone ringing all day when I'm teaching this class, right? It's all junk calls. It's annoying. It's the most annoying thing in the world. So when I like to look at things from perspective from the public's view. If I was calling them, well, what if they were calling me? I'd be annoyed about it. What about you?
Annoying.
Are you looking to sell your home? I have a client when they really don't. I have a client that may be interested in buying your house. Yeah, here's a good response. Okay, bring them by and show them my house. What's their name? Bring them by and show them my house.
It kind of reminds me that when I had to do recruiting for the military, when I had to do cold phone calls, oh my God. I would get a lot of mean people like on the phone, like, no, my son will not join the military.
Were you doing? They had you doing cold calling for the military, or at least one calls where somebody showed an interest first?
A few calls, and also they had like a list of prior service members who wants to come back too. So,
Okay.
so like I only had to do it for like 3 months because afterwards it was they're like the orders for that was 3 months, half year, sometimes 2 years, but I only did it for 3 months. But cold calling was
But who did they have you calling? Just numbers at random, or people that expressed interest at one point in time?
no, actually JROTC students, prior service members, like
Okay, so
whenever
people
yeah.
who may possibly have an interest in the military. It's not
Yeah.
that's not completely cold calling. Okay, not completely. It's close to it, but it's not completely cold calling because there's some sort of possible interest already in that. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, but yeah, you got a taste of it though, because that's pretty much how it is. One thing for certain, when you do cold calling, you learn to deal with rejection, right? Builds character.
Yes, rejections. Same thing happened with my father too when he first started his landscaping business. A lot of rejections, and then afterwards it's just making connections, and
You gotta,
that's
let it go off your shoulder. Blow off your shoulder when you're doing cold calling and things like that. I prefer warm calling leads of people who may need my services. Or that called up or expressed interest or did an inquiry on the website, and then you call, and then you're calling them back. Or following up. This way it's not completely cold. There's some sort of connection there. I'd rather reach out and call my past clients and ask them if for referrals, because that's the best way to do it. Because now it's not a cold call. I'm being referred by somebody that knows you, and you had an interest in this. You're looking for a new place or looking to sell your old place, and you have an interest, and one of your friends or close coworkers told me about you, that you may need my services. So I'm just calling to follow up with that. That's one call. It'll be a warm reception than the cold shoulder that you're going to get if you just call someone at random. That's what cold calling is, by the way, guys. When you're in sales and you start just calling phone numbers at random. If you guys remember a phone book, does anybody here know what a phone book is? Or is everybody too young to understand?
Yes.
Remember
Yeah.
what a phone book is, okay? A phone book, so say you get a dart and a phone book, and you throw a dart at the phone book, and that's the person you're calling. That's basically how it works. It's like a random thing. You don't know if that person has any interest in your service or need or for it at all. So you're calling to try to list their property or find out if they need help to buy a house or lease something, or that's pretty random. That's pretty random. It's pretty desperate too.
It's called 0.1%. If you are
You-
making
you do
100
not-
calls,
Yeah.
100 calls, and if you make thousands calls, then may one person can be find interest on you,
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much.
and then that one also is not going to turn to be customer. It's
But
maybe
usually you got just going on at brokerages, you got the whole office doing it behind you, and now it sounds like it's a call center to the background for the person who you're calling, and then it sounds super, super shady.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, moving on. Exclusive agency listings. Only one agency is exclusively hired to market the property for sale, and the seller reserves the right not to pay us a commission if they find their own buyer. This sometimes causes a conflict of interest between the agent and the owner, who may be trying to avoid paying us a commission. So other agencies still can show the property. We do not cooperate with them. We do cooperate with them as required by law, and the owner pays a commission if the listing agency or an outside agency brings the buyer, but they reserve the right not to pay us a commission if the owner finds their own buyer. That's basically what an exclusive agency listing is. So let's highlight those things.
I have a question. By cooperating, does that mean like just listing it in the MLS? Is that like what cooperating means?
Yeah, we're sharing with them our listing inventory so that they could see that, hey, this property is available for sale. So if they got a client that's looking for a property in a certain area, and meets certain criteria, how many bedrooms, how many baths, the architectural style, where it's located, the price range. We enter it into a database that they can now search. They could see all those properties. They could narrow it down, and now they got a buyer that's looking for a property. It's easier to help find them a property because we're all cooperating with each other. So by cooperating with each other, we could sell properties quicker and at a higher price than were the case if we were not to. In that case, we could only show buyers properties that we have listed in our own agency. And you may not have that many. However, there's thousands of agents that are licensed in this state, and thousands of them may have listings. And if you could have access to those thousands and thousands of listings, you have a better odds of doing business and making it in the biz by working with buyers or renters, right? That's what we mean by cooperation.
All right, thank you.
And the Real Estate Commission's administrative code requires us to. Not just by law, but by the administrative code. So. All right. Yeah, that looks good. Everybody got those highlights? Got those notes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Okie dokie. Here's a good example of an exclusive agency listing. Here's your company's for sale sign, and then you got like a bunch of for sale by owners all around it. They're trying to compete against you. The owner wants to get the call. They don't want the call going to your agency. I've seen them take it a step further. What does this image tell you about the owner?
They're really not so committed to you.
Well, that's true, but if I'm driving in front of this house and I just stop in front of this house, what is this saying to you as a buyer?
Like he's desperate to sell.
Desperation. It reeks of desperation. I've seen this. I've seen this before. I've seen it where they took a staple gun and they stapled the for sale signs to the side of the building. when it was on a corner of the property. That reeks of desperation. Okay. So I've seen them take it a step further where they took this for sale by sign and put it on top of the agency sign. I seen it where they took it even a step further than that. They took that masking tape and put it over your agency's phone number and wrote their own phone number over it. What are they trying to do? They're trying to screw you over on the commission. Hell, I gotta have somebody drive by. Well, you know, our exclusive agency listing, any of our exclusive listing agreements state that there's to be only one sign on the property, the agency sign. No for sale by owner signs. None of that crap. But yet they still do it. I like this one. You like this meme? That's a cute meme. It's true too. This is very, very, very true. Look at that. Recall issued for these signs. They've been proven ineffective for sale by owner. Now, why am I saying that? Is that true? Do you know how many for sale by owners are actually successful in selling by owner?
I think very less. 1-2%.
Yeah, very less.
Very less.
Very low. It's about 5%, if that. It's probably below 5% of people who list their property for sale by owner are successful in actually selling by owner.
Why?
Because what if out of state want to move into the state and like, you know what I mean?
Well, there could be many reasons. They don't have all the resources or do all the marketing that we do. They don't have the access to the MLS to put their listing in the MLS, and instantly thousands of agents, tens of thousands of agents have access to it, who may be all working with buyers, tens of thousands of buyers. We market it in real estate magazines and other places, which may be it's too expensive for them to do. We have tools where we're dealing with buyers that we try to get them pre-qualified for a mortgage loan first. Make sure that these people are have the ability to purchase. We put the buyers through through a little bit of an interview process first, and make sure they have the financial ability before we ever take them out and show them any homes. Whereas the for sale by owner, first of all, they're taking a big risk sticking that sign out in front of their house. Somebody comes to the front door, you don't know who that person is. Now, they may be going in there to rob it, or rob you, or rape you, or do you harm, or your family harm, or to case the joint so they could come back later and break in and rob the place. You know, who knows who these people are that are walking in the front door? Do they have the ability to purchase even? Why would you allow somebody into your house to look around that you don't even know? It's difficult. And you're limited on how many buyers you actually get. You're hoping that someone's going to drive by and want to buy that house in that price range with all the features that match what they're exactly looking for. And that may not be the case. It's not that easy to sell by owner. So then they put it on for sale by owner websites. Okay, maybe a for sale by owner website is also a discount brokerage firm who will put that listing in the MLS for a flat fee of $600. All right, so you put it in the MLS for $600. What are the other agents getting out of it? You offering them a high commission? Probably not, because for sale by owners are typically cheap. Why? Because they're trying to save money. And it's very understandable. I understand why they're trying to sell by owner. So if I reach out to for sale by owners still anyway, and I ask them if they're interested in the assistance of a real estate professional who can help them market their property and find a ready, willing, and able buyer who's been pre-approved or pre-qualified for a mortgage loan. And there's a lot of benefits for working with a real estate agent. Now I'm starting to get into a presentation with them to try to list their property with me. Of course, you're going to have to overcome a lot of their objections and pushback because of the cost. So, of course, they're going to want to negotiate with you on your commission. You're going to have to try to justify what you do and all that stuff. ask them, is there a sense of urgency for you to sell your home? Or are you on a certain timeline or time frame? Because you may be there for a while trying to sell on your own. Statistics have shown that way less than 5% of people who try to sell by owner are successful in doing so. So why would anybody try to do this? Well, they're trying to save money. And I understand that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, why you would want to do that. I know the commission's a lot, but we're worth our money. Your first price reduction is usually more than our entire commission that we ask for. So why not just pay us a commission, help us price the property properly, get it out there on the market? We have all kinds of legal protections for you, financial protections. We help liability. We help limit your liability in the event of lawsuits. We help you market and sell your property in accordance with all the laws that you need to follow, whether you're using a real estate agent or not. You need to follow those laws. There's a lot of reasons. But that's what being a real estate agent is. You got to try to overcome these objections. Take a course on dealing strictly with for sale by owners. Take a class about dealing with expired listings and how to overcome objections of people who already listed with a real estate agent and may have had a bad experience, how to overcome their objections and get them to list their property with you. Sometimes it's just a gift of gab too, that having the silver tongue, so to speak. All right. So here's a broker that's not very confident in the services they provide, right? Look, I took this picture a couple of years back. This is a for sale by broker owner. So this is a broker that owns a real estate agency that owns this house, a broker owner. And you're doing a FSBO, yet you're going to have the gall to go to other for sale by owners or property owners and ask them to use you and your services when you don't even have the confidence to use them yourself. What the hell is that about? That's interesting. I don't know why somebody would want to do that. Not exactly screaming confidence right here, is it? Exclusive right to sell listings. Look at this. Look familiar? So, yeah, exclusive right to sell listings. Only one agency is exclusively representing the owner to market their property. Other agencies can still show the property, set up appointments and show the property. We cooperate with them fully. The seller pays us a commission no matter who brings the buyer during the listing term while the listing is still in effect. Even if the owner finds their own buyer or renter, they still need to pay us a commission. So now everybody's working together to try to market and sell this property. We're not fighting or trying to screw over each other to get the commission or avoid paying one. The seller may be obligated to pay a commission even after the listing expires with an exclusive right to sell listing, provided they did not relist the property with another broker. And it was somebody that we introduced to the listing or that was introduced to this listing while the listing was active. So the seller may be obligated to pay a commission even after a listing expires. If they go under contract with anyone who was introduced to the property during the listing term and the property was not listed by another agency. This is usually no more than 6 months after the listing expires. That's why you don't got to worry about fighting with anybody about getting these listings or selling these listings.
So why would another agent show the property if they're not getting any sort of commission?
Who says they're not?
No, it says that this is only one agency is exclusively. Oh, the agency. Okay.
Only one agency is exclusively hired to represent the seller to market their property to find a ready, willing, and able buyer.
So not an agent, an agency.
Yep.
Oh, okay, so then.
Yeah, these are the types of listings we want to get. That's the best kind. You get paid no matter who brings the buyer. As long as the listing is active, you get paid. Hell, even if the listing no longer is active and somebody who was introduced who learned about the property during the listing term, if they now step forward because they were thinking about it, now they step forward to put in an offer, we're still owed the commission on that because they learned about the property through us, through our listing.
So the commission get divided or we get like a separate commission?
Well, it depends. Is another agent bringing in the buyer, or is it just the buyer
Yeah.
stepped forward and they reached out to us?
Another agent.
Yeah, if it's another agent, commissions go both ways.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, you guys got the highlights here? Got the
Yeah.
notes, got the
Yes.
highlights. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a broker protection clause that is put in most listing agreements. You can see it says the owner agrees to pay a listing broker a commission if the owner acting on the owner's own behalf within so many days you put there, 180 days, 6 months, whatever, after the expiration date conveys or agrees to convey the property to any buyer shown the property by the listing broker or any person during the term of this listing. The clause shall not apply if the property has been listed by the owner with another broker by a written agreement. So basically, if our listing expired with us and then they relisted with another company, well, then the broker protection clause no longer applies. So that's what the broker protection clause is all about. And we got them in our brokerage service agreements now too. BSA. Get that screenshot. And here's just a bunch of different links to resources here for listing agreements with brokerage service agreements included and listing agreements without them. Since the Miller lawsuit thing, we have what else we got here? The listing with all Jersey MLS without a brokerage service agreement does not talk about commissions at all. The New Jersey Attorney General's memorandum, which we need to give to property owners at the time we get a listing, remember that, tells them that they cannot discriminate. We have listing input sheets depending on the type of property so that we take them with us, we print them out, take them with us, or you go with your device and your tablet and you enter the MLS while you're walking around the property. But you know what questions to look for, what to take notes of when entering a listing into the MLS. If you're going to do a delayed showing, you need that coming soon delayed showing listing form to be filled out. Or if it's in a 55 plus or senior housing community, you need to have that special form, the HOPA form for housing for older persons. Here I put together a nice, neat little chart for you that at a glance you could easily see when we're owed a commission. So let me retitle that a little bit. So when is an agent actually, or agency actually owed the commission? If it's an open listing, exclusive agency listing, or an exclusive right to sell listing, when are we actually entitled to a commission? Well, I put together this graph for you that makes it easier to tell. Let me get a screenshot of that so that I could put it in our slide, in our notes here that I'm putting together. So if the listing agency, with an open listing, if the listing agency finds the buyer, they're owed a commission, but not if another agency finds the buyer or the seller finds their own buyer. They owe the commission in those circumstances. If it's an exclusive agency listing, we're owed a commission if the listing agency finds the buyer or an outside agency finds the buyer, but not if the seller finds their own buyer because they've reserved the right not to pay us a commission if they do. And with an exclusive right to sell listing, we're entitled to a commission under all circumstances. As long as the listing is still in effect, we're entitled to the commission. That's why I got the smiley face all over here. That's the type of listing we want. I don't even have the other kinds of listing agreements. Couldn't tell you where to get them. Don't care. Don't use them. You'll need to know this for exams. When are we owed a commission? For what types of listings? When are we owed and when are we not owed a commission? All right, so you also have net listings. Net listings are illegal in New Jersey. A net listing is where an owner tells us how much money they want to net from the sale. And then whatever amount we could collect over that amount, we get to keep as our commission. So what's the list price? Do owners sometimes not look in reality, thinking their home is worth way more than it is, and as it is, we're trying to knock them down on value? And then if we end up getting that price, we earn nothing, so we're going to have to get over that price in order to earn a commission? There's a lot of incentive not to be very honest with the property owner here, because the commission is directly related to how much we could get over what the owner wants to get. And often owners are not working in reality. They think they could get more than the property is really worth. Look, it's an invite to dishonesty, and it's an invite to violating your fiduciary duties, because you don't get paid otherwise, really. It makes it much harder to. So the seller tells the agent how much they want to net from the sale, and the agent can set the asking price and keep anything they get above that amount as the commission. It lends itself to fraud and is not in the seller's best interest. Net listings are only legal in 3 states: Texas, Florida, and California. And I don't know why. Multiple listing, that's the service that is often referred to as the system these days, as a computer system, because that's the database where we enter our listings into. This is how we share our listings. When we get a listing, we got to put it in the MLS within 48 hours. Unless what? Unless the owner tells us not to cooperate with other brokers, then we need to get them to sign the waiver of broker cooperation agreement. And by entering it in the MLS, we can sell these properties quicker, and we get some quicker, faster, and at a higher price than were we not to cooperate with other brokers. All right, sub-agency is an agent of an agent is a sub-agent, both representing the seller. However, they're both, only one of them was actually hired by the seller to represent them. And because the seller doesn't actually have control over the other one because they didn't directly hire them, they're not sure what tactics they're using to try to market the property, and it could end up being a liability on the seller. So this was actually popular in the 90s. It's not so popular anymore, this type of sub-agency. There are situations where it could make sense, like if you get a listing for a shopping center and you don't know the first thing about selling a shopping center, we could work with a commercial firm, both representing the seller to try to find the buyer for the property, and then we can learn about the process of selling shopping centers and such. But there will be an agreement there where the one of the agencies were hired directly by the owner and the other one was not. So it's not as common anymore, but it's still an option on the listing agreements if they're offering sub-agency compensation.
ठीक बोला कृष्णा प्रभु जी।
So what? All right, it looks like we're here at the end of the day. So let's just highlight net listings illegal in New Jersey. We'll leave it off right there. Let me
Can agents do like tiered, let's say? I know that it's thing, but I'm always curious if like they say like, okay, if it sells over 300, then I'll take X percentage. If it sells over 400, I'll take that percentage. Or
Sure.
that's a yes?
Sure.
How does that work?
You can tie it to a time frame.
Yeah.
If we get an offer and we get into a contract by a certain date, you're going to pay a certain commission.
Oh.
If it's after a certain date, the commission will be different. You know, I mean, there's a lot of creative ways, I guess, you could go about charging commissions.
My shadow told me
Oh, I see.
that she
But it can't be set to a fixed dollar? Is that what net listing is?
No, net listing is where an owner says,
that like he wasn't using anymore.
I want to
And
get
like Coke and
You're right in charge for commission. As long as I get net X amount of dollars in my pocket from this sale. Whatever you get to keep as your commission.
Oh, so there's no set amount.
A ninja.
There's no set amount.
That's great.
The problem with that is that what the seller really has not much say in the listing price. The problem with that is the real estate agent can be dishonest about what the true value of the property is, because it's directly related to how much they could get for the property in offer prices, and their commission's directly tied to that. I mean, I don't even understand how you do it. That would be so hard to do. I don't know how in these 3 states net listings are even performed. I'm going to do a little research on it myself. I'm going to do a little internet poking around and try to find out myself. I really never cared because I don't work in any of these states. I just know it's illegal here in New Jersey. All right, so we're going to leave off right here, and I'll see everybody tomorrow. We'll continue off right here tomorrow. All right?
Okay.